Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, now that pretty much all the KvKs are over with, and we are going to be talking about kind of the official winners and losers, if you will, or winners of each of their KvKs, along with points that they have gathered, along with kind of merits and some other stat records for the end, because I know it is coming up here as well. I believe we actually have this is going to be ending on the 29th. So we have, I think it's going into the 27th tonight. So we have about 2 more days. But for now, I wanted to talk about a certain level of disappointment. And it has been happening now more and more often. Not to say that it has necessarily been happening, let's say, in large amounts for every KvK across every KvK group, but it has been happening to a decent amount of KvK groups, and I think this KvK season has absolutely been the most impactful. Now, what am I talking about? Well, what we're talking about is some of the areas, namely, as you probably have heard me talk about before, as it relates to pass openings. Now, the way that the KvKs have often ran. Now, this is with exception for Rise of the Dragon, which I personally think, and I know a number of other kings and queens out there and people and other kingdoms prefer Rise of the Dragon. I think if you're looking at it holistically, compared to some of the other storylines, I personally think Rise of the Dragon has been the best KvK season so far when you look at all of the parts, not just one area or this area or that, but when you look at it combined. And for me, it has always come down to the fact that I look at KvKs from a perspective of how can we get the most amount of engagement, the most amount of participation, and for as long as possible. Now, there's the other side of this, which you will hear some people comment on, and they may say things such as, well, look, it's a war game. If I want to go and crush people and never let them get out of zone 1, that's what I'm going to do. Listen, for those people who feel that way and you have kind of more of that Infinity Kingdom vibe, because I can tell you right now, and there are other games outside of Infinity Kingdom that did this, but let me give you an example here. Let me paint a picture for you on how much lack of joy and fun it would be in the most extreme case and most extreme situation, just so you can understand both ends of the spectrum for what we're talking about here. So let's imagine that in this KvK, you start out in zone 1, okay? So you have, here we go. So you have a zone 1 here, right? You got your 4 zone 1s here. Scalera, we have Kaurmala, I'm sure I'm butchering that. Baduria, and then over here we have Door, right? Now imagine if these zone 1s, imagine if you could go into the zone 2, and then if you win the zone 2, which would be here in Karadeg, you could immediately go into your opponent's zone 1. That is basically what, and I don't know if this has changed, but I can tell you for a very long time, for a number, many seasons while I played Infinity Kingdom, this is how it was. You could invade. The only difference here is that you could invade an adjacent zone 1. And then I think they had some neutrals here and there. But the problem is that you could finish the KvK arguably before zone 2 opened, if not by the time it opened. Meaning that you would be in your opponent's starting zone just killing them off. And they would either have to decide to stay or go back to the home kingdom. Now, this has been, and will forever be, in my opinion, one of the most disappointing parts of KvKs is because you don't allow people to play long enough. Now, this has not been exacerbated to that extreme of a level, thankfully, in Call of Dragons. However, I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. The top 5 or 6 KvK groups, I think 4 out of 5 or 4 out of 6 of them were done by the time we're done before Final Zone opened, right? So just to give you an example, a breakdown here, right? So you can understand kind of where we're going with this. If we go through each of the groups here, right? And we showed this off as well on how things looked. So as in the number 1, and I'm gonna let you go down my sheet too as well. I'll just show the sheet off because I'm already here. So this is my kind of KvK update sheet, right? I call it my risk it to get the biscuit sheet, but it's just basically my all the KvKs, depending on for everyone that's in Season Strife. I keep tabs on everyone. So this is just kind of how I organize my stuff. But let me break this down for you so you can really understand where I'm going with this, and then I'm going to hammer the point home, hopefully, here at the end. So 7009 is where the G2 Kingdom pool starts. So arguably this would be the strongest. That's kind of how KvKs have gone, right? So it's like lower the number, stronger, higher the number, weaker, right? Depending on what the KvK group's pool range or group's range is. So in this case, 7009 would be the strongest G2 KvK, right? So this had the TFS group in it. Now, as you can see here, TFS, GB, right, WB had control, right? This was in zone 3. This was the cross zone 3 at the time, before final zone opened, right? So WB had control. WAO, oops, hang on, let me give you the small O there because I don't want anyone to be like, oh my god, how dare you put the big O? So WAO, VP22 had control of Doolin, and then S2AK and Rage had control of Camelot. So they basically had 3 out of 4 zone controls. This KvK was over, arguably, before the final zone open. Okay, that's done. Next group, 7010. This was the Echo BTX group. Okay, let's look at this. Echo SVR had control of their own zone. Echo SVR BTX Ravona, Echo SVR had control. Camelot, MFD, VWL had control. EX and BNR mostly had control, right? But again, a similar situation. 3 out of 4 zone controls, which stopped one of the zone's kingdoms from getting to the final zone in that case, right? So bam, the top 2 KvKs, done before the final zone opened. Utter disappointment. Worst thing that could have happened. Because you have to think about it. These are your money-generating KvKs. How much money do you think the developers lost because they didn't create a situation in which all the kingdoms could get to the final zone? Now, this is very different than saying everyone needs to stay there for the entirety and, oh yeah, we just need to have a super heavy handicap and let's just run through the prairie, right? Picking dandelions and like everyone singing Kumbaya. No, we're not saying that at all. But this is a massive problem. Let's look at the number 3 KvK. Right, so this one, we had EIS SHPZ had control. We had SHPZ invaded from the north, Southgate holding. In this one, Camelot, they had control. EIS invaded from the north. So in this case, you could say there was about a 3 out of 4 about that zone control here. For the number 3 group, the KvK was pretty much over, right? I mean, yeah, there was some fighting, I believe, in the FZ, but for the most part, it was over by the time the final zone opened. Okay, let's go to the 4th one. So in the 4th one, you get to the 4th KvK, everyone here actually had control. This is the first one. You're getting down to the 4th strongest KvK group, and they actually had like a pretty good final zone showing because everyone had an opportunity to make it. Fantastic. Okay, let's go to this one. So this is the fifth group. All right, we're not going to go down too far here. In this one, RFF had control, 14BS had control. In this one, SG EVG invaded light from the west, and then SVG Doolin had control, right? Now, again, this one was kind of control, and then 57, 14BS, right? So this one, you could argue they did have some fighting, but there was an advantage going in RFF's Coffee's favor. In this one, this is the 6th group. Well, let's go to 6. You had control for BK NTS, NWHCF, NTS light invaded from the north, and then NTS pushes from the north and MM push from the south. So this is kind of another situation here where you have a 3 out of 4, right? You're looking at what is this, 5 out of 6, 4 out of 6 minimum of KvKs from your top 6 KvK groups where, I mean, it's Dunsky by the time the final zone opens. You just can't have that happening. It's the absolute worst thing. And I don't understand why they haven't corrected this. It baffles me beyond all belief. Now, what's the solution? How would I like to see this fixed? I'm going to be very clear and simple because I will keep beating this bush because it needs to happen. There needs to be a change here. All you have to do is make it so this is pass 5 and this is pass 4. That's all you got to do. That's it. So you let the final zone open first. Give it, I don't know, 5 to 7 days, give or take. Take a poll. Let the kings and queens take a poll and say, look, how long would you like the final zone to be open before the cross zone 3 passes open? And that's fine too. Now, I believe, again, because from what we saw in Rise of the Dragon, which I think is a great example, we saw that the final zone had multiple days of PvP before we started seeing winners declared. Now, yes, some of the KvK groups probably had more earlier advantages being established sooner, but we saw multiple days of PvP fighting. I would say 3 to 5 days of like really good PvP fighting on average that we were seeing. And there's going to be some plus and minuses there, of course, depending on the group. But just by doing this simple change, now some people may say, okay, well, boss, what do you do about zone 3? What, they're just going to have a free zone 3 and go into zone 5? No. All you need to do is just create another neutral PvP zone here in between the cross zone 3s. You did it in between zone 1s, you created zone 2. Why can't you create another neutral area here, or a bigger kind of statue objective thing, right? Maybe something bigger like an abyss map, as an example. Be creative. Think outside the box. You have at least 2 options you can do here between these. And you could even do something where you keep the pass here, but then you just create a little neutral zone over here that people can fight, or a bigger one. And you give them some other goals and objectives to fight for. Make it worth it. And then you have the final zone that opens. And then you could have the cross zone 3 pass that opens for people to invade and people. Now, I like somewhere around 5 days. I think somewhere maybe around like 4 to 6 days, give or take. Maybe if you want to say 3 to 5 days, you could maybe sell me on 3. But I think somewhere minimum 3 to 5, maybe 4 to 5 days, allow the FZ to be open before the cross zone 3 passes open. And then you open the cross zone 3 passes. Now you guys can invade each other. Then you open up for zone 2s to get invaded. And then if you want to go all the way and open up zone 1s to get invaded at the end, totally fine. But basically the idea is it's got to be like this. It's got to be like a horseshoe, right? And then it comes down around. That's kind of how you want to view pass openings. And then you just need to create battle opportunities, which is not difficult to do because they already have a blueprint for it. And then I think we'll start seeing a lot more successful, consistent, and more often KvKs. Because what's happening right now, this ain't it. And we know it can be better. We know they can do better, and we know the opportunity is there for that to happen. Again, that's what I would like to see. That's my take, my opinion. I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Would you rather have? Would you like to see them do something else? And why? Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to be it for me. As always, until next time, I can breathe now. We'll see you later.